Okay, so we're gonna get going here. Just a quick thank you to everyone for joining and taking time out of your busy days. I know this is kind of unprecedented that we're having these kind of virtual conversations, but we need to do this as it's so important for young athletes, high school athletes, even middle school athletes to hear about what's going on in the college world, and more specifically, what can be done now to help your son or daughter be college of their choice. So that's kind of what today is going to be about. It's going to be a very, very simplified overview of what the next 4 weeks for this course is going to offer, as well as kind of things to do in the meantime. Just a little bit about myself. Some of you know me. Some of you have no idea who I am. So just to kind of put some notes behind the face. I went to Regis High School and played varsity basketball and baseball for the Raiders of Regis High School. I graduated in 2008. Regis High School is a Jesuit private school in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. I then went to play years of collegiate baseball at the Division I level at LaSalle University, home of the Explorers, 10 conference. So it's a mid-major Division I. I was a 4-year starter in the outfield, was named to the Atlantic 10 All-Rookie team. My junior year, I was able to fortunately gain a contract to play baseball in the Cape Cod League for the Orleans Firebirds, which is the best baseball experience I've ever had in my life. Currently, I teach at Delbarton. That is my main job. I'm an English teacher there. I've been teaching freshman English for the last 7 years. I'm also the varsity assistant baseball coach for the Green Wave. I coach middle school basketball, run the diversity program, the student government, and I'm a member of the admissions team. My experience with athletic recruiting, kind of just fell in my lap. Coming out here, I was 22 years old at Delbarton, and had players, juniors and sophomores that first year coming into my office and saying, "Hey, coach, I want to go play college baseball." And I kind of looked at them with a blank stare and said, all right, let's make this work, and kind of made it happen from there. And I learned a lot over the last 7 years. At Delbarton, we've been fortunate enough to send 33 players to play baseball collegiately, both Division I and Division III. Founder of and currently the co-director of is called the New Jersey Rising Rebels baseball graduation class was the class of 2019. They were already knee deep in the recruitings because they were juniors. Out of that class, we committed 7 of our players. I believe we had 19 players in that class, so we committed 7 out of 19 out of 29 players. And the other 4 of them have accepted full scholarship universities of their selection that they are looking to play collegiately at Division II level 4. Current juniors so far, we have 3 players committed, all to Division I programs, 1 to UVA, 1 to Boston College, and 1 to Fordham University. The key to this was that all of our players have had the ability to utilize Sports Recruits, which is our online recruiting platform, became experts in this, and they became proactive in their process. They also really became well-versed in crafting an initial letter to email to coaches. And they were able to streamline the process based on the graduation year and their desires. So that's something that, our whole coaching staff and me in particular are able to help with hand in hand. I walk our players through the process, and families, which I hope you guys heard last week, how families are so important to this process. But I'm able to utilize the Sports Recruits account, help your son or your daughter craft the initial letter or email to coaches so that we could kind of be very direct yet humble in our approach, and then streamline every kind of resource we have so that we can make sure that your son or your daughter is in the best situation possible. Just, as a kind of a segue, I heard from 12 college coaches today about players in our junior class. 10 of them were Division I's, and all they were asking me for was, video, which we'll get into. But it's been great. They were able to access a lot of information on our athletes via Sports Recruits, which is the platform we use, as I said before. So moving forward, how to start. Main question: do you want to play a sport in college? And this should be a personal question to the athlete. The athlete has to determine himself or herself, yes, I want to play my sport in college, or I want to play 2 sports in college if we have an athlete that is so capable of doing so. The questions that lead after that, yes, would be, am I ready to put in the work? As all of you, I'm aware you're sure of, is the academic hours, the athletic hours, the travel time, okay, nutrition. How do you understand all of that right off the bat? Am I ready to put the work in? So academic hours, you have to understand. Athletic hours, how many hours of practice? How many hours in the library do I have to put in? How much travel time am I willing to put in? Do I like to be on a bus in the Atlantic 10 Conference, where my furthest travel time on a bus might be St. Louis University down south, and my furthest travel up north may be St. Bonaventure's, which is basically in Canada. It's right on the border of New York and Canada. That was the longest trip I've ever taken because there's really nothing to look for. Or do I want to play in a more regional kind of conference? Do I want to play, where travel time is only 2.5 hours? So that is something that you have to decide on. And nutrition, do I want to actually eat like a professional? Or do I want to just go to student union and hang out with my friends and have, some fries here, a burger there, maybe a milkshake to go, or do I really want to be meticulous and strict in my approach? Those are kind of some questions that you're going to want to think about when answering, yes, I want to play my sport collegiately. And then what are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to play professional sports? Are you trying to study at a university that you may not get into without sports? Do you want to just develop more general athleticism and stay in shape and have fun with your sport? Or do you want to travel to places I would have never thought of? For me personally, it was all 4 of these concepts. And that's where I kind of cemented myself and said, you know what? I want to do this, and I'm going to put the work in to do it. So that's kind of what you're trying to get out of your experience in a collegiate level, a collegiate experience. So there's many more to that, but those are the 4 that I kind of thought of right off the bat. And I'm going to stop right here. If you don't know me, I move really fast. I'm very energetic and rambunctious. If this was live, I'd be moving around. My hands would be going crazy. It's not my Cuban side, it's my Italian side. I get that from my mother. But any questions right now? Nothing. Feel free to just, take yourself off mute and just say, Tony, coach, can you stop for a second? Totally fine. So don't hesitate to reach out that way as well. But first step, as an athlete, you have to control what you can control. Obviously, we're in a time frame where we cannot control this virus. We can't say, as Ryan's a player of mine, hey, you know what, coach, I'm going to go out, I'm going to stop this virus. I say, Ryan, let's calm down and, let's handle what we could control. Right now as an athlete, you have to work to, 1, perfect your craft. This is an opportunity that you have to outwork your competition. And that's kind of what I'm talking to my players about, is you need to become the hardest worker you possibly can become, because you need to be able to, when the lights go on, outperform every single player on every single field they go out and play on. You need to be the hardest worker on your team, the hardest worker in your state, the hardest worker in your sport. By being those 3, you will not only help your team win, but you become recruitable, because these college coaches at the end of all of this are going to say, you know what, that kid really took the bull by the horns and made it count. He made this tough time count for himself and his process, and they want to recruit guys who have And as like I said, they want to recruit the workhorse who has a passion. The next step is character. College coaches strive to recruit athletes to have a good face. So what I recommend to athletes by a good face is to have that passion. I don't mean a handsome face or a beautiful face. I mean a face that likes competition, that yearns for adversity, one that has that smile when things are going well and that look, that furious look when things go bad. That's what college coaches want. They want to have that good face. And they want to recruit, at the end of the day, a good person and an even better teammate. Colleges want good individuals on campus. College coaches, their jobs are on the line year in and year out, because if they recruit a crop of athletes that just do not do it socially or academically in the classroom, they will get fired. And typically, recruiting coordinators are the first to go. Head coaches have a little bit of leeway, but recruiting coordinators will get fired. So coaches are always looking for guys of character, girls of character, who are going to be great students, great leaders, great mentors to younger athletes down the road, and great teammates. And then obviously I mentioned grades. This is a time where exceptional grades are a must. If you're struggling in a class, you need to talk to that teacher and ask them what you can do. Can I meet with you during office hours? This is a time for you to work to receive the highest grade you can in every class. Your goal should be an A+ in every class. Now, is that realistic? Probably not, but that should be your goals, because this term for a lot of schools is what's going to help your GPA get boosted. You have the opportunity to do that through this virtual learning and remote learning. At the end of the day, teachers are going to be a little more lax with your grading. Coaches want to recruit an individual who will represent their program well. This is the typical first question a college coach asks. I can't tell you guys how many times last year, if my 2020 team, we would go to a tournament and the first question is, what is Kyle Vincey's GPA? And I use Kyle Vincey as an example. Kyle Vincey is going to play Princeton University next year. He was a 4.4 student at Delbarton. He currently is a senior, so he still is. And when these Ivy League coaches would come up, they would ask, that was the first question they asked. A school like a Monmouth University, which is down the shore, first question they asked last year. Division IIIs, Franklin and Marshall, Gettysburg, Ithaca, you name it, these college coaches want great students. Then you talk about your next step. The next step is the proper research of a college search. So it is great, in our program that we deal with younger guys at the freshman level. And what we tell our freshmen about recruiting is, hey, you want to talk to Vanderbilt, you want to go reach out to Stanford, you want to look at Texas. We're as a coach, I'm never one to tell a player early on as a freshman where he should be looking. Because at the end of the day, maybe he doesn't want to play baseball by junior year and he loves Texas. He researched Texas, or he researched Texas A&M, and he fell in love with it, and he wants to go be a student there. I am not in a position as a coach to tell him, no, you have to play baseball. So the initial research process is so important in many different ways outside of sports. But if we do research athletic programs initially, we need to make sure that we understand the college itself. So we need to know that this is about the athlete and what the athlete would like out of his or her experience. So I state here, I'm going to read word for word. You as the athlete will be the one making the sacrifices and living on campus. You have to ask yourself, is this a place that you see yourself at? If you cannot see yourself at that school without baseball, it is not, or lacrosse or soccer. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep using baseball for all the non-baseball people there because it's so ingrained in my mind. But for any sport, is this a place, the student, outside of your sport? Because as the world has proven to us, sports can be taken away at any second, unfortunately. Are you going to be happy? Once you start those questions and thoughts, include your parents in this initial conversation. There may be certain circumstances where your parents might say, you know what, this is not a great place, and here's why. Or, you know what, this is a little bit out of the realm of possibility, and here's why. This takes a lot of maturity on a young athlete's plate to be able to handle those conversations, but including your parents in those conversations initially gets everyone on the same page. And as a club coach or a high school coach, when you have those conversations, you should always allow your parents to be in them, because there's a lot of conversation and there's a lot of, effort and finances that come into this equation. And then you got to ask yourself, what type of colleges interest you? This is going to change. As a 14-year-old boy, I want to go to Alabama. I love the Tide. Roll Tide. You may love it. And then all of a sudden, junior, you're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I loved Alabama. I didn't ever want to go to school that big. I want to go to school that's a very small school. And that is okay. That's a natural progression of thoughts during this process. But here are some concepts to consider. You got to consider school size. You got to consider what it means to go to a private university or institution rather than a public one. You got to take into account tuition, financial aid opportunities, scholarship opportunities. What kind of academic rigor do you want? Do you want to be in a place that's going to challenge you day in and day out? Do you want to be in a place that, you know what, I'm okay, with a medium, range academic school, or you know what, I don't want to work for my grades at all. And all three are up to the individual. And then you want to look at the location of the campus, which is a big one for me and baseball players specifically. Do you want to be in a place where there's a field on campus, in the middle of campus? Is it okay if you have to travel a couple minutes down the road for your field? Do you want to travel a couple miles, sometimes 30 minutes off campus for your field? Is it okay that your campus is in the middle of nowhere? Do you want it in the middle of the city? Is it okay to be on the outskirts of Philadelphia? That's what you have to decide. You have to decide the location of the campus that you like to play for. And then specifically, the athletic concepts to consider is the conference of play. What type of conference do you want to be in? What type of conference, most importantly, do I see myself being an impact guy or girl in? Do I trust this coach? You're going to have very intimate conversations with college coaches, and they're going to talk to you like adults, and they're going to ask you some personal questions. And after those conversations, you may say, you know what, I love him. I love her. I can see myself playing for her. Or you'd be like, well, he sounded like a salesman. If he sounds like a salesman, then he or she is probably not the best coach to play for. But that trust is so huge as part of this process. How many current players are on the team? How many current players are from my area of the state? How many players are from New Jersey? Do they really recruit New Jersey? One of the things about Southern schools that have baseball teams is that, if they have New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts kids, you got to take a look. Do they actually play? Are they taken care of? It's a huge question. You got to do your research on the current players on the team and kind of how their interactions have been with the coaching staff and the program. Are there transfers? Do players leave the team? Does the coach bring on JUCO transfers? How's the travel for out-of-conference games? Wow. Seton Hall University baseball team went to Hawaii last year for an extended weekend. That's pretty cool. I wonder what they're doing next year. Well, you know what? Rutgers only went to North Florida. Like, I'm looking to go to California. Some things might turn you off from programs. Who knows? And then you got to look at other things like the potential to pursue the sport after graduation. Does the program take pride in its athletic facilities? Do they offer athletic tutors? But most importantly, do they want me? That is the question you have to ask yourself. Does this coach, does this staff, does this school want me? So I decide on the type of school that I want. I decided that I want to play collegiate athletics for my desired sport. Now what? I have the sports recruits image on here because this is something that a lot of Centercourt athletes already have. If you are a Rebels baseball player, you already have it. If you play Centercourt lacrosse, you already have this. So this is a platform that is the best one in the country to be used. It has every single sport. It has every single college coach on it across sports. It's a very simplified way of getting your videos, your transcripts, everything. And I'm not going to bore you with everything, but everything out there that you need to promote yourself in the college recruitment world. And we're going to get to sports recruits at the end as well. So you know what you want out of a school. How do you create a list? You create the list based on your needs. But then how do I make contact? So making initial contact with a college coach is going to be different for every sport. But here's the rule of thumb. You want to create a draft of an email. Okay, unfortunately, and I wish this was not true, letters are so outdated. I'll never forget my junior year of high school, which was 2007. I sat at my dining room table in my parents' apartment, still a thing, because there's something with such a personal touch in writing, draft an email. Your email should be quick. A quick introduction, but it should be effective. So paragraph 1, it should be an intro to yourself in the program that you're reaching out to. Paragraph 2, you want to highlight the position for the sport you play, if there is one. You want to highlight the team you play for, both high school, and you want to put your link to your sports recruits account or video and your schedule. And then paragraph 3 should conclude with a fact about the program. What I mean by a fact about the program is, I'll take Seton Hall University, for example. Let's say after the Hawaii trip, you would want to put in there, I look forward to hearing about your Hawaii trip after you get back next weekend. Or I see that you guys won, 2 or 3 at the University of Hawaii. Congratulations. Little things like that shows a coach that, 1, it isn't a mass email. And 2, this is something that matters to you. And that is what a college coach and a college recruiter wants to see. And then the question comes up, which coach should I send this to? There's 4 baseball coaches on there. There's 70,000 football coaches on Rutgers University staff. Who do I send it to? You always want to address the recruiting coordinator of the program. The recruiting coordinator is hired by that university or institution to deal with recruits. He is or she is the one who is constantly promoting athletes' videos to the head coaches if he thinks or she thinks that they're well enough. And he or she is the one that is always going to send out player questionnaires and camp information. So the recruiting coordinator is kind of the guy or girl you want to go through. Then you want to copy the head coach if you send a regular email. On sports recruits, if you just send it to the recruiting coordinator, that is more than enough because it already goes into the database for the head coach. If there's no recruiting coordinator, then you address and send to the head coach. Here are some responses you could expect to get very simplified. Due to NCAA rules, we cannot talk to you, but here is information to our upcoming prospect camp. Please send us your schedule, and we look forward to seeing you play. Unfortunately, we have closed off recruiting players from your graduation class. I liked your videos and think that you could be a potential fit for our recruiting needs. When would be the best time to talk on the phone? Or the infamous no response. All these responses warrant even more effective and detailed responses on the athlete's end. But these are certain ones that we're going to go through during these next 4 weeks of the class series. But these are ones that you can expect to hear back from. This one's pretty simple slide here with phone or text exchanges with a college coach. My first biggest thing is be prepared. Do your homework on the program, the school. Prepare 2 to 3 questions. You want to make sure that you can answer questions about yourself, right? You never want to stall. You want to be confident. You never want to be too humble, but you don't want to be outside of character. But you always want to say a state or question when you can. Basically, a coach is always going to say, hey, Ryan, do you have any questions about our program? And if you just sit there and like, oh, well, no, I'm good. They're going to be like, oh, well, is this kid really interested in my school? So you want to prepare 2 or 3 questions. Questions might come up naturally in conversation, but at the end, if you're given an opportunity to ask questions, go for it. Typical questions can be, who do you guys play at a conference? Do you have any great trips coming up to start your spring season? I know you're based out of Massachusetts, so there might be snow on the ground. Where are you guys going in February for opening weekend? what do most of your players study? Are they business majors? Do they get into the pre-med program, the pre-law program? Little things like that go a long way. On that phone conversation or text exchange, you got to be yourself. The coach is reaching out to you because he or she likes what they have heard and, more importantly, what they've seen on the field or in the gym. Do not try to be like anyone else other than your true person. And then you want to be direct. There's no reason to sugarcoat, no reason to lie, ever, ever, ever. You want to always answer questions honestly and truthfully. If you do not know an answer, tell the coach. It's all about the relationship you're trying to build. College athletics is a small world. Do not try to lie or trick a coach. You have no idea how the baseball world, the lacrosse world in college, the wrestling world, the football, basketball world, it's so close, the network. Everyone knows everyone. So if you're a recruit for, let's say, Princeton, and all of a sudden you have a bad, interaction with that coach and he didn't like you for some reason, well, that coach is going to tell the staff, and that volunteer assistant might have been the Brown University's volunteer assistant or the Cornell University's volunteer assistant the year before. And all of a sudden, Cornell and Brown know about you, and now they're definitely not recruiting you. So you always want to be direct, you want to be yourself, and you want to be prepared. Just some general kind of recruiting terms here. You have your contact period versus quiet period versus dead period. To go through that, the contact period is basically a live period. That is the period where college coaches can literally go anywhere and recruit you. They could go to any tournament. They could go to any camp. They could go to any game. They could literally go anywhere and talk to you and recruit you. A quiet period is where a college coach cannot leave campus to actively recruit you. He can bring you on campus, but he cannot go to an event. So that's where you'll hear, and I'll talk about baseball for an example. You hear about these perfect game showcases that go on, or PBR showcases that go on in the winter, and they're great for perfect games really not, but PBR is great for metric purposes and getting video and all that stuff. But a Division I college coach or even a Division II college coach cannot go to those events because it is the quiet period. Division III coaches can attend whatever they want. There are no rules for that division. But Division I, Division IIs for the quiet period cannot go off campus. They can host student athletes and recruits, but they cannot. And a dead period is currently what we're in now. The dead period is going on until the end of May, and June 1st, hopefully the NCAA will open it up. But there are no Division I, II, or III programs actually right now that can have recruits on campus, or there are no events going on, but they could not attend any events. But a college coach can certainly pick up the phone. They can certainly text you, and they can certainly email you about recruiting needs. For every sport, it's different, but if you are a freshman or sophomore, a college coach cannot call you or text you or email you initially. You will have to do the initial outreach. So, for example, and Ryan, I'm going to use your example. Let's say Rutgers University needed to talk to Ryan. Ryan's a current sophomore right now at Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. And let's say Rutgers said, hey, Coach Negrin, I'm really interested in Ryan as a potential catcher for the class of 2022. I'd say, okay, great, Coach, Monahan, really appreciate it. And he'll say, I can't talk to him right now because he's not a junior yet. I can only talk to him after September 1 of his junior year. Can you have Ryan call me at 8 p.m. tonight? And I'll go and I'll call Ryan. I'll say, hey, Ryan, Coach Monahan, the recruiting coordinator at Rutgers, wants you to call him. Can you talk at 8? Of course. Boom. That's how this works right now for underclassmen. So I hope many of you have questions about your sons or daughters who are freshmen and sophomores. I hope I could alleviate the stress that comes with that. But that's how coaches can talk to your sons or daughters early on in the high school process. When they're juniors or even seniors, college coaches can call your son or your daughter as long as it's after September 1. I think for certain sports, it's after July 1st. But for the spring sports, it is September 1. Then you have an unofficial visit versus an official visit. An official visit is typically used for seniors where they are brought on campus. They spend a day and a night on campus, and everything's paid for. That means meals, that means transportation, that means lodging, that means everything. An unofficial visit is not paid for by the school. And an unofficial visit typically is before an offer is made. So it's a way of a college coach or staff touring you around the campus, meeting with the players, little things like that. But the biggest things here is that an unofficial visit is not paid for and an official visit is paid for. Then you have verbal commitment versus official commitment. You guys always hear the term, I'm so blessed I've committed to such and such university. Those are verbal commitments. A college honors a verbal commitment, a player honors a verbal commitment, and then by the National Letter of Intent Signing Day, which is the November of senior year, it becomes an official commitment because it becomes signed. The document is signed, and then it is official. That student will get into that university or institution, and that school will be giving that amount of money to that student athlete. So you'll hear horror stories about schools that decommit from a kid or a kid decommitting from a school. That can happen because there are verbal commitments and not an official commitment. So that rarely happens. But, specifically with this year, with the coronavirus now, we may be, in the month of May, learning more stories about, decommitments. But for a normal year, that's never anything to worry about. Then you hear about a recruit, as we know about. You hear about a preferred walk-on versus a general walk-on. If you are not recruited and have never had a conversation with a college coach at the academic institute you want to go to, you would be considered a general walk-on if you try out. If you are being recruited by, let's say, Boston College, and they say, you know what, Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep using you because you're right here in front of my face. Ryan, you know what, we already have enough catchers for our 2022 class, but you know what, we really like what you see, and you know what, who knows with the draft, little things like that, we would love to offer you a preferred walk-on spot. What a preferred walk-on spot means is that the school is not going to give you an athletic scholarship in year one, but what they're going to do is they're going to take you all the way through the fall and have you play with the team, and then at the end of that season, they're going to determine whether you're going to stick full-time with the team or they're going to cut you. So with walk-ons, there's never a guarantee. And if a college coach tells you it's a guarantee, you need to ask him again, because typically a preferred walk-on, you are just taken through the fall season of your sport. And then a redshirt season is when you do not play with the team. You will practice, you will weight lift, you will train with the team, but you will not be in any competition, and you will not lose a year of eligibility. So before I end, there are some expectations about, the next 4 weeks that I have for this recruiting class series. Students will learn the proper ways to identify specific colleges of interest to the student athlete. By the end of the 4-week series, actually by the end of next Tuesdays, all athletes are going to conduct an initial list and create an initial list of colleges that they might be interested in. Students will begin during the series to create, expand, limit an existing list, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior. Students will learn and use a finalized version of an introductory recruiting email. This class will get college emails out to college coaches by week 2. Students will learn what college coaches are looking for in their specific sport videos, and students will learn how to effectively communicate with college coaches over the phone, via text, or in person, which happen typically before or after tournament games or showcases. Some takeaways from the next 4 weeks. Obviously, as stated before, you're going to create an organized document with all schools of interest and tracking correspondence. You're going to create a finalized email that can be used at any point in the process. You're going to review sport-related video clips that past players have used so that you can model yours off those so that you can send to college coaches. You're going to have engagement with other student athletes to compare, contrast experience in schools, which is one of the biggest parts of this series is going to be the interaction with fellow student athletes. I think, we all have the same goal in mind. We need to talk about it, and I think this is a perfect platform to do so. And then you're going to have access to a personalized sports recruits account. So if you don't have one, you're going to be able to get one through this class, and I'm going to walk you through it. In addition to that, you're going to have the ability to meet with me and schedule time with me every 15 minutes of every week, at least 15 minutes. If you need more, I'm going to give you more. But by signing up for this series, you're going to have the opportunity to meet with me for 15 minutes a week. And more information obviously is going to come with that. what you can expect after we end this presentation, is I will send you an email with all these slides, as well as my information. And, you feel free to reach out to me. So with that being said, I'm going to take that off. And do we have any questions? I see a couple in the chat here. The first one I have here is from Ms. Gomez. When should the email be sent? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year? Should there be a follow-up email? So typically, what we suggest as a baseball coaching staff of our guys is if they come to us as freshmen, we are sending emails at the freshman year. And why we do that is just so that we could get in the database of the colleges we would like. College coaches are typically going to send you a questionnaire about, your interest and your grades and this and that. You may not be able to fill everything out, but by completing that questionnaire, you will now have direct access to literally every camp that school will run. Every academic or admission-driven tour that school will run. You will get constant emails about that school. So it is a great way just to send that out as soon as you can. Sophomore year, same thing. Junior year, those emails get a little bit more intense, meaning, coach, I'm really interested in your program. I love the fact that you guys offer a phenomenal pre-med program. It's a little bit more catered towards the academic side because we're coming late into the game as a junior if you have never started the recruitment process before. But for freshmen and sophomores, that's very early, and we like to hit the ground early. Your coaches should be proactively talking to colleges that you're interested in during freshman and sophomore year so that those colleges know when a decision is to be made your junior or even senior year that they can trust your club coach or your high school coach. So I hope that makes sense. Email should be as early as you can. Freshmen, a bunch of our freshmen just sent out emails last week, and they were phenomenal, and we're getting great feedback on them. Even though the college coaches for baseball can't talk to them directly, there are a lot of follows going on, and at the end of the day, that's all you could ask as a freshman or sophomore is to be followed by the colleges of your teams. Another question: do college coaches really look at and seriously consider all the players that go to their prospect camps? So, Summer, that is a great question, and when you go there to these camps as a team, and you go to a team camp, and as for baseball, this is something that's relatively new. It's kind of looked at. I guess football, it's like 7-on-7s. I'm sure in lacrosse and soccer, they do team camps as well. You are being looked at, and I can guarantee that. Your club coach should be going on campuses that they have good relationships with so that there's a trust factor there, obviously. All those kids are going to be looked at. When you go to a prospect camp, unfortunately, that is not always the case. Volunteer assistants have to get paid somehow. And more of the times than not, these are the ways to do that. So if your son or daughter gets invited into or to a prospect camp, you want to really take a look at who that invitation is coming from. And sometimes they'll just say assistant coach. And if it's the assistant coach who's the pitching coach or the hitting coach or the recruiting coordinator, that's a legitimate invite. If it's commonly found, in my 7 years of doing this, that is not an official invite. So at that camp. So that's something to look into. I would definitely talk to your club or high school coach more about that with your specific sport. But in terms of baseball, when parents or forward me information about it, did they make any note in the email that they saw you at one of our tournaments? If not, is this definitely just a marketing email? And if so, who is it coming from? Is it coming from the head coach? Then you know what? I'm going to go text the head coach and see if he knows anything about you. Or if it's from the volunteer assistant, that'd be that great. So that's something definitely talk to your high school or club coach about. But that's kind of the rule of thumb that we've followed as a program for the last 3 years and at Delbarton for the last 7 years. We had another question. How do you gain exposure? as an athlete, you got to perfect your craft. You got to go out there and perform. That's the only way you can gain exposure at the start. During the way you gain exposure is through your grades by putting your transcripts on the Sports Recruits, and then you have great videos on there. And you have a diversity of videos. You're going to film some pop time, some simulated pop times. You're going to film, some blocking drills, and you're going to film. Sorry, can't talk anymore. You're going to film your hitting. If you're a pitcher, you're going to film all your pitches, and you are going to film every angle of your mechanics. So that's kind of how you gain exposure during this time. But normally what you want to do is you want to go out there and perform. When the lights go on, you want to be the best on the field. And then the second part to that question, how important are showcases and other events that demonstrate your ability to compete? Showcases are important if you go to the right ones. There are a lot of money grabs out there run by organizations that their employees depend on you to go there for their job. You got to really have a strong relationship with your high school and club coaches, and so that they can recommend the correct ones for you. Typically, you want to go to ones that are invite only that your club coach can get you into. Those ones are usually the best ones. I know that, every sport has one or two that are dependable that year in and year out kids get signed out of. So you want to make sure that it's a good one to go to. If they open it up to 200, 300, 400 kids for baseball, for example, it's really not a good one because there's not enough coaches and there's too many kids there. And I have here, and then I'll open it up. What filters are coaches looking for when identifying an athlete via Sports Recruits? Mike, that's a great question. What they're looking for is they're looking based on for specific sports, they're looking on positions and they're looking at graduation years. So what happens there is if a coordinator, let's say at Fortney, and I know I needed a 2022 outfielder. Okay, I'm going to go on my baseball tab, and I'm going to go ahead, click. I'm looking for right-handed or left-handed. I'm going to click right-handed, left-handed, and I'm going to look for outfielder. It's going to populate all the outfielders that come up there. The same thing happens on PBR's website as well for college coaches. So they really go by position for the sport as well as graduation class. What happens is they filter now for GPAs as well. I know a lot of the Ivy League schools on Sports Recruits kind of wanted them to put a filter in for GPA. So now, just like you can see as a client of Sports Recruits, the requirements for each school and put that in your filter, college coaches can do the same thing for student athletes, which is fantastic. And it's been great for them so far. So I hope that answers the question. Any other questions? Okay, we got one more from another one. When is the best time to start going to college prospect camps? As early as you can, if you know that there's a school you want to attend. I always tell freshmen that you should camp before the summer season because you're not even out there yet in front of college coaches. Typically, after the summer season, a club coach will have a better understanding of what college coaches are truly interested in a student athlete, and then you could be directed by your coach as to what events you should do. But there's no harm in going to one. I wouldn't waste your parents' money and go to like 3 or 4. I'd go to one that you really love and that you love the school. I might go to one at the start of November, late October, but you don't really want to go to too many early on. The prospect camps are typically used for the end of your sophomore year going into junior year, or end of junior year going into senior year if you're uncommitted. Any other questions?
Hey, Tony, while people are maybe thinking about some additional questions, I just wanted to kind of touch on that. Guys, we asked Tony to put this presentation together and keep it under 45 minutes, which is a very tall task when you're talking about recruiting. And there's a lot of information here. The recruiting process has many layers, as you could tell just from this quick kind of intro. there's a lot that the coaches should be doing for you, high school coaches or club coaches. But there's a lot that's really on you as players, as families, as parents. And so I think that what you'll see over the next 4 weeks, if you sign up for the class, is that Tony will be able to take you through the kind of the integral components to this, such as, we talked about sports recruits and building out a recruiting kind of platform profile for yourself. Sports recruits is one of many different options that are out there. We feel like it's one of the best. It's one that we use as a company. And so, frankly, we're able to provide you a profile if you don't have one. And it is a great tool. So, Tony will be able to help you set that up. Talking about drafting those initial letters and emails to coaches, which sometimes is tricky. If you've never done it before, how long are these letters? What are we talking about? It's just a, hey, hello. Tony will be able to walk you through that. And, there's a lot of different things that they go into. So over the next 4 weeks, you're really going to get a lot of, assets, content to kind of take with you. And, Tony refers to baseball a lot because he's a baseball coach, but he definitely has a lot of experience with other sports as well. And that's where that private kind of 15, 20, whatever 30-minute consultation you need on a weekly basis, that's where you can drill down on your individual needs. And don't underestimate the value of that, because it's not often that you get somebody that has Tony's experience to really coach you through this recruiting process, whether you are a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whatever it may be. So I would encourage you to take advantage of this. You'll get an email about this following up to sign up for the class, which will start next week. It'll be 4 consecutive weeks of a group session like we're doing now, plus an additional, 15, 20, whatever 30 minutes you need with Tony. You can kind of schedule that with Tony on your own. But that's all included. We're going to give you a sports recruits account if you don't already have one. This is really an important piece to this. We're doing a lot on the academic side. We're doing a lot on the social, kind of interpersonal, emotional side of things, mental health side of things through the Centercourt 360 platform. This recruiting part of this is, if you are interested in playing college athletics, you always say, if you're good, people will find you, coaches will find you. That's true, but why not make it easier for them and have everything you need, all your content, all your profile, everything you need ready to go in a professionally organized way. And that's really our goal for this. So I just wanted to kind of make sure you all understand that this is really like a high level overview of what the recruiting process looks like. And you'll get into all the details and everything moving forward, and you'll spend more time on those individual components. But it's really a critical piece. So I hope you all take advantage of that and understand that Tony, he has a lot of experience doing this. He's sent multiple college athletes to really high level universities. And so it's a tremendous value you're getting out of this.
Thanks, Matt. And just to piggyback off Matt, everyone, sports recruits is at first going to be, you're going to look at it and you'd be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And it's going to be okay. And that's kind of where I'm going to jump in and walk you through kind of the foundation of steps you need as a student athlete to create a successful one. But even before that, just creating that list of schools. And that's a tough task. And that's a tall task to ask, especially if you're 14, 15, even 16-year-olds. It's your future. And that's kind of what I want you to understand. And I want to make it enjoyable every step of the way, because you should be humbled to be in a situation to think about college athletics, where many other, men or women your age just don't have this opportunity. So I want to make it enjoyable. I want to make it as stress-free as possible, because it can be stressful many times. So that's kind of why I'm here. And I know, thanks for allowing me to do this, and I look forward to working with many of you. Does anyone else have, before we sign off, you're going to give out in an email as well, so do not be bashful to reach out via email if you have any other follow-up questions. But does anyone else have a question before we sign off? Not. So again, thank you all so much I look forward to seeing many of you next Tuesday. And And if again, reach out, you will feel free to respond. So again, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.
Thank you, Coach.